Can we have our first living person in the studio this morning? Everyone else has been sort of digital versions of themselves. Tuomas Qvick, very much welcome, VP Digital Energy and Energy Business, Schneider Electric. How are you?
Thank you. Excellent. Good morning.
Great. Good stuff.
So you had a good morning so far?
Yeah, looking for a car place here, parking, and it seems to be everything is occupied, but otherwise
Okay. So not that smart city here.
Not at all.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
It's going to develop. But you are going to talk today about future buildings. Is it really true that we have to reinvent buildings in the future?
Absolutely. I mean, we have all kind of challenges, and definitely one big dilemma is related to existing building stock that we have in Finland, but globally as well. So for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, Tuomas, we know you're a regular speaker at smart cities and smart buildings events. Is this something that sort of drives you personally? Is this your passion? Are you following your star?
A little bit embedded question, but yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But you feel for it. I mean, that's your thing.
I've been in this industry, I mean, in construction real estate for almost 20 years, and you know, there's a big difference in this line of industry in terms of innovation and ability to develop compared to other industry like cars and mobile phones and shipbuilding, for instance. And we have a big gap for improvement. So it's kind of interesting to be at this given point that we have so much opportunities to develop cities and buildings. So yeah, for sure, it drives me personally.
Why is the development so slow when it comes to buildings?
Well, of course, it's a complex matter, and if you look at we are dealing with assets that are exactly not renewing very quickly. So if you look maybe until 2050, we need to deal with these existing buildings of 80%. So it's not renewing fast. So that's definitely one dilemma. And then other dilemma, which is related to both developing new buildings but refurbishing existing ones, is that we have quite complicated value chain what comes to building. If you compare that, for example, building or manufacturing a mobile phone or car, which is very much in the ownership of a company, then you compare that to a construction industry where you have a multiple stakeholder and the ownership actually is changing many times during the process from the investor, developer, designer, construction company and many builders. So the ownership is very fragmented, and even if you would have a target in the beginning of the process, it might not get it unless you influence it a lot.
Makes sense.
But hey, one important question. Do you feel, Tuomas, that the COVID crisis has functioned as an agent for change in this case? Has it made things faster and make us...
Maybe not as quickly as how we have become kind of dealing with the communication, digital events like this. But for sure it has kind of brought into attention to many things, why we should be able to manage the building more remote basis, etc. So I do believe it has an impact.
Thank you for the interview, and now the stage is yours.
Great to hear more.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning online, everybody. Good to be here in the digital event like this. My purpose today is to hopefully demonstrate why it makes sense for building owners to invest in new modern technologies and hopefully you would get some ideas what could be the elements of the buildings of the future. One important aspect of the future building, for sure, is the impact of the carbon emissions. That's important from the, let's say, embedded carbon during the construction phase, but more importantly, then what's the carbon impact during the lifetime of the building. We all know that Finland, as a country, we have established very, let's say, ambitious target for the carbon neutrality. And frankly speaking, I believe that we cannot become carbon neutral by 2035 without really transforming our building base. Looking at the data, building for sure need to change. So if you only look at the building CO2 emissions globally, so 40% are coming from the buildings. Buildings also, as we just discussed with Peter, they really need to become more resilient, meaning that we need to improve the ability to connect to the buildings on remote bases, and even more importantly, how we are able to adjust the buildings where the demand rapidly is changing, and we need to adjust different areas of the building as it functions. Then studies also show that we actually are really spending excess energy in buildings, and everybody can imagine how much we are heating, lighting, or cooling the spaces which may be empty. So we do things unnecessarily that we could do some kind of a smarter decision to avoid the cost to happen. Then finally, of course, we individuals spend most of our time in buildings, and so we need to make the building smarter. We need to make it better for us to use, and much more user-centric. And I do believe that as people are getting kind of more aware of possibilities, they also demand buildings to be healthier. They demand buildings to be better and much more user-centric than they are today. For sure, we have a lot of areas for improvement. Then maybe zooming a bit to Finland. So what is the Finnish situation? So only from the numbers point of view, I would say that Finland, in terms of energy efficiency and the carbon emissions, I guess we are performing a little bit better than global averages. So, but we all also know that we have a lot to do. Then if you look at the building stock in Finland, we have around 1.5 million buildings in the world. I mean, in Finland, and out of that stock, 1.2 million is residential buildings. So that means that you and me as individuals, we have responsibility of making better buildings, and we do so. We are investing in the heat recovery units, and we want to make the energy bill smaller. But then when you look at the larger chunk of buildings and the non-residential part, that is greatly owned by institutional investors, surely cities, communities, building investors and developers and building owners. So there's a big responsibility for making the stock better. And as I just said, in Finland, probably by 2050, still we are using this existing buildings out of 70 or 80% of it. So we really have to find ways how to make existing building stock better, more efficient when we are refurbishing and when we are doing improvement for years to come. Of course, then when we build new, it should go without saying that we build smarter buildings for the user, for the future needs. I would say good news is that there are probably now better possibilities than ever in this space. There are two major transitions ongoing as we speak. Digitization and then electrification. And if we a little bit discuss both of them, so in terms of digitization and in buildings, a number of IoT devices, sensors is really increasing rapidly. That leads to that we have much more data and better data to do smarter decisions. So that really goes hand in hand. And then on top of that, we are also developing or seeing growth or different kind of smarter system like artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. So that will lead, hopefully and probably, into different kind of outcomes, but it also makes our existing processes more efficient. Then if you look at the electrification, it started with the change of the energy market, and energy market is going more from traditional sources, more for sustainable sources, and more distributed sources, and that change seems to be fairly rapid now as we speak. Other important element is that electric technologies are quite rapidly, or at least increasingly, replacing, let's say, traditional fuse-based technologies. That happens in different paces, of course, in different countries, in the cars, but also how we are heating spaces, how we are heating the water, for instance. And this brings quite interesting opportunities. Now, I would like to bring one case here, or shall we say a concept that actually is utilizing both of these opportunities. And that's related to buildings, virtual power plants, and connectivity to demand response markets. And then what that actually means, I'm not going to go into details, but in principle, this virtual power plant may contain solar energy, it may contain a battery for the building. For sure, it will contain better balancing abilities for demand and supply of energy of a building. So it's kind of new concept that is not yet in the market, but the demand is increasingly very rapidly. So now, with that in mind, I would like to now shortly activate you, dear viewers. So question, how interested you are in opportunities of virtual power plants and demand response markets? So A, very much interested. B, I don't know what they mean. And C, not interested. And you should have an ability somewhere on the right-hand side of the screen to answer it. So we will return to results later in this session. So moving forward, what is really good and positive to see that now the building owners in Finland are really kind of investing sustainable energies and different kind of technologies. You may recognize many of these buildings in Helsinki, Tampere, offices, shopping centers, new head offices, logistics centers. So, and these investors are really putting bold targets for the buildings. They might be like cutting 70% of the energy bill, increasing the revenue per square meter while lowering their maintenance cost, or making more productive workplace for the 1,700 employees. So the targets are really ambitious and they really want to seek alternative solution. I will run a short video here with showing one case example, which is really sort of explaining how this is happening in real life. So let's turn on the video.
Suomalainen luonto on mulle tosi tärkeä. Se on läsnä vapaa-ajassa ja harrastuksissa ja on hienoa, että mä voin tehdä jotain sen hyväksi myös työn puitteissa. Mun nimi on Kalle Hintikka ja mä vastaan Lill Suomi Ky:ssä jakelukeskusrakentamisesta. Päivittäistavarakauppa on osa kaikkien arkea ja sen takia meillä on iso vastuu siitä, miten me kehitetään meidän toimintoja. Kun me lähdettiin suunnittelemaan Järvenpään jakelukeskusta, me ei vielä tiedetty, onko meidän tarpeisiin vastaavia ratkaisuja olemassakaan. Schneider Electricin kanssa me onnistuttiin löytämään sellaista. Me haluttiin kiinteistö, joka toimii kokonaan uusiutuvalla energialla ja joka oppii optimoimaan omaa energiankäyttöä niin, että myös päästöt on mahdollisimman pienet. Se onnistui yhdistämällä Schneiderin EcoStruxure kiinteistöhallintajärjestelmä ja Microgrid Advisor. Se hakee tietoa ulkopuolelta, energiahinnoista ja säätilasta ja opettaa tätä rakennusta ennakoimaan tilanteita ja optimoimaan kulutusta. Tämän mikroverkkokokonaisuuden avulla me voidaan tasata meidän energiatarpeita. EcoStruxure ohjaa kaikkea tämän talon toimintaa. Sen avulla me ollaan ensimmäisenä Suomessa yhdistetty lämmitys- ja jäähdytysjärjestelmät niin, että jäähdytyksessä syntyvä lämpö voidaan varastoida ja hyödyntää, kun sää kylmenee. Laskelmien mukaan me ollaan pääsemässä yli 70% säästöä energiakustannuksissa. Tämä kiinteistö on hiilineutraali ja me vähentää myös läheisen voimalaitoksen hiilidioksidipäästöjä varsinkin kesäaikaan. Yhteistyö Schneider Electricin kanssa on avointa ja eteenpäin vievää. Schneiderin toiminnassa näkyy myös kansainvälisyys niin kuin meilläkin. Tämä on hyvä alku yhteistyöllä ja toivotaan, että päästään tekemään lisää jatkossakin.
Okay, I think that's an excellent example where the building investor have a clear vision that what they want to do and really strong ownership. They can really make different kind of outcome. Our vision for the building of the future is that buildings are performing in best possible way in all digital and all electric world. And it goes across these 4 dimensions. So in terms of sustainability, we should rather produce energy than consume it. In terms of resiliency, it should be more connectability, better transparent to different kind of data in the buildings. Then hyper efficient for the buildings and users, having possibility to lead the buildings and manage the buildings so that they are really efficient for people to work in. And then, finally, much more people-centric than they are. For sure, they should be healthy, efficient, and then, as I said, much more user-friendly as the buildings are today. That's all for today. I do believe that, let's say, the future for the tomorrow's building, it's already here. It starts now, and we are ready to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Tuomas, and please welcome here, and welcome also Risto Seppo, Property Development Director from Citycon.
Thank you.
And good morning. You were listening to the previous speech. How did you find it? Did you find anything to emphasize?
Yeah, actually, it was really interesting, and we are doing, we are aiming to do cooperation with Schneider with our biggest development ever called Lippulaiva.
Okay, what does it mean?
It means that we try to kind of find the kind of a very smart building technologies and kind of beyond the normal ones, which we normally do. So it actually the federal power plant and the demand response system is one of the kind of the things which we try to develop together. Mm-hmm. And actually there is also an additional part of that which kind of a Schneider will probably provide us, or at least you have a promise to provide, so that the digital twin, whatever it then means, kind of run the property in a wise way with the data. And for example, that we could use the number of the visitors in a way in a beforehand to, for example, when it's kind of when the data shows that, for example, in the Friday evenings or in the late afternoons, there will be a kind of a lot of or more people than normally in the shopping centers, and the CO2 emission in the air will increase, that we can then kind of automatically start the ventilation to kind of adjust it
how would you comment this interesting cooperation that you are going to have?
Yeah, I fully agree, and it is true that we need investors who have a challenging target, as I said earlier, and they need to challenge us as and I'm not talking about Schneider only, but technology supplier to do better, to demand more. I think that's somehow the message how I believe it.
Yeah, and actually you need to be kind of a look out of the box, and like in Tuomas' presentation, it was very clear that actually that the building or the construction business is quite conservative. Yeah. We come behind all of the other kind of business branches in a way, and that's kind of our challenge. Yeah. And you really need to be curious and find the new solutions. And you don't know it yourself. That's probably, we think that we have done this before, and you really need to kind of look at it with the new eyes. I don't know how it was answered to your question, but
no, but I think it's good, and what I said earlier, that what you have been doing, that you are challenging the value chain as it works today, and if you don't do it, it probably is manufacturing what it's designed to do or what it used to do. Yeah. So need to somehow break the status quo, I believe.
Yeah.
So Tuomas, you asked a question from the viewers, and the question was how interested you are in opportunities of virtual power plants and demand response markets. And I have the results here, and the option A is very much interested. It's 64% of viewers who say it's very much interested. Okay. And the option B, I don't know what they mean, is 32%. What would you say? Could you give a short explanation to these B persons who don't know what this means?
Well, first of all, I'm not surprised, because these kind of opportunities are not that much in the market. There has been a lot of talk in past, I would say, 5 to 6 years, and now since the Fingrid market has been become available, now the phase is increasing. But it's not surprising that over 30% do not know what it means. But the answer to your question is that we are happy to educate and also be part of the development, because I'm sure not everything is ready, and the whole industry needs to learn how to make it possible.
So we are just taking the first steps when it comes to this. Thank you for both of you. And now I'm going to give Peter to introduce the next guest.